And we are live.
We are live? Right. All right. Well, good evening. Good. Everybody, can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes.
Okay. I'm Frank Doden, and I'm chairing the Planning Commission meeting this evening. And I'd like to officially call to order the Tuesday, August 11th meeting of the Yellow Springs Planning Commission. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Doden.
Here.
Pilata.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Curlis.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Yay. Thank you.
All right. I'm just going to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I, just to clarify, also present is Denise Swinger, Planning and Zoning Administrator. And do we have Brianne Parcels on yet?
I'm here.
Thanks very much. Village Solicitor Brianne Parcels. Thank you.
Okay. So one of the first things I'll do is I'm just going to go quickly over tonight's agenda. So we'll start with, we'll have a review of the minutes from our last meeting. Then I'll do a quick summary of the communications that we've received in writing, either in actual letters or electronic letters regarding the public hearings that we have coming up tonight. There'll be an opportunity for a council report. Laura, are you going to be doing a council report?
Yes, a short one.
Okay, thank you. And then there will be a time for citizens' comments. And that first section of citizens' comments are for any items that are not on the agenda for tonight. Okay. After the citizens' comments are done, then we'll move into the 5 public hearings that we have. I'll just summarize them quickly. A conditional use application by David Johansson for 602 Keystone Court. The second one, a conditional use application by Michael Ains and Heather Wright for the property at 409 South Stafford. Number 3 is a conditional use application regarding the property at 604 Xenia Avenue. The fourth is a conditional use application for 241 Xenia Avenue. And then number 5 is a map request for rezoning map amendment for property at 403 Xenia Avenue. Then after that, we'll just be moving on to sort of planning commission business, some amendments to the planning code, and then discussing old business, new business, and potential agenda planning for upcoming meetings. So that's what we're going to be doing, and it's an awful lot to cover in one evening, and we'll try to get through it as quickly and as efficiently as possible. For those who aren't familiar with the Zoom meetings, please try to keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking. Otherwise, we tend to get an awful lot of feedback, and then people can't hear what's actually being said. But welcome everybody, and hopefully we'll have plenty of time for everybody to participate at the appropriate times on the issues that they're here to talk about. So the first thing that we'll do is review the minutes from our July 14th, 2020 meeting. And I'll just go through them one page at a time and give the Planning Commission members time to chime in if there's any changes or corrections that need to be made on a page-by-page basis for the minutes. So are there any corrections or changes anybody noted on page 1?
Nope.
Okay. Anything on page 2?
No.
Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Okay. Good. That's gets all the way through them then. I'd make a motion that we approve the July 14th, 2020 minutes. Is there
Second.
second? Okay. Would you call the roll, please, for the vote on that?
Pallotta,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Curlis.
Abstain. Krieger took my place last meeting.
Okay. Green,
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is just reviewing the communications that we received, and I'll try to summarize them as best I could. We had, I believe, a total of 5 communications that I'll need to talk about. There were a couple of letters from, I believe, Ellen and Rod Hoover about the project concerning the properties from 239 to 243 Xenia Avenue. They expressed concern about the possibility of the deck being built on their rental property, and requests for more time to review the application. And they also had some questions about the public notification process that I think maybe Planning Commission, that's something that we could possibly talk about during the agenda planning at the end of the meeting. Second letter that we got was from, I believe, Amber Singleton and other neighbors in the Keystone Court area regarding the application for the accessory dwelling unit at 602 Keystone Court. The letter expressed opposition because, according to the letter, the correct procedures were not followed for initially for getting the accessory dwelling unit. And then there are also concerns about traffic and construction equipment, trailers on the street, things like that. Okay. There was a letter from Marianne McQueen regarding the application for the property at 604 Xenia Avenue. She, in general, supported the application, but is concerned about the current zoning requirement that would seem to require a parking lot to be built onto property to accommodate the commercial use of the space. And she suggested possibly waiving that requirement. We also got a letter from the Yellow Springs Chamber of Commerce, basically in support of all of the proposals tonight that are coming, the applications, both the one by about the gardening, the one at 604 Xenia, and 241 Xenia Avenue and 403 Xenia Avenue. I believe she also expressed concerns about the parking situation at 604 Xenia as well. Okay. I think that was all the letters. Did I miss any letters, Judy, that you know of, or did I get them all?
There was one from Kristen McGall.
Oh, I think I missed that one. But could you summarize that real quick?
That was just also just a one of general support. And again,
okay.
The concern about parking.
Okay. Yep. That one.
And that's for 604 Xenia.
604 Xenia.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Next thing is we'll move on to the council report. Laura.
Thank you. The only thing I have to report is the council approved, well, we heard about the grant. We haven't approved the grant. It has been submitted and awarded. Salmoron announced the village received $1.6 million in grant funding for the ATP, which is the Active Transportation Plan. And the public's encouraged to look at that and the elements to it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Laura. All right, now we'll have the period for citizen comments. And once again, just a reminder, this is a time to comment about anything that is not on the agenda for tonight. So if somebody'd like to comment, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and chime in. I'll give everybody a few seconds to see if there's anybody that's going to have any citizen comments tonight. All right, I'm not hearing anything, so we'll finish with citizen comments and we'll move on to the first of the public hearings that we have, which is the conditional use application. David Johansson has submitted a conditional use application for an accessory dwelling unit at 602 Keystone Court. And to get us started, Denise, would you like to talk about the staff report?
Certainly. In August of last year, I was actually not here. I was on vacation. And Raven, who's also here tonight, received a call about adding a sink and a toilet in an existing garage at that property. At that time, there was some back and forth with me via email. My concern was that you could later turn it into an accessory dwelling unit, and I had suggested that maybe she see about them going through a conditional use process. However, the contractor, with this, there was no communication with the property owner. This was with the contractor. At that time, village staff was assured that it was only going to be used for the purpose of a bathroom, just to clean up in the garage. We later, this past July, received information from an appraisal of the property that it had actually become an accessory dwelling unit. So we contacted Greene County Building Regulations to see if perhaps they had approved it at their end, because we have a relationship with them that they require our zoning permits first. They did not have that. And so village staff and Greene County Building Regulations went out to the site and inspected the interior of the garage, which had originally been built in '81. And Mr. Johansson, said he was not aware that he was required to seek zoning approval. He relied on the contractor for securing the permits from the village. So whether there was a communication breakdown between the two, between last year and now, staff is not aware of this or not sure about that. But Mr. Johansson is here. He was willing to cooperate to take the appropriate steps to resolve this issue. I don't know what Greene County Building Regulations is going to require of him, and he is here tonight if you have any questions about it.
Okay, do any member of the members of the Planning Commission have any questions or concerns about the application at this point?
Oh, I think there's plenty of questions here. A lot.
Okay.
Hey, Denise, I've got one quick question. If driving by the parcel, we always have a minimum, maximum of green space to cement and property, buildings, and all that. That percentage, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but I'm going to be willing to bet that percentage is not proper. Correct?
Well, we don't have a permitting process for a patio. If you wanted to put like a rock garden in your yard, you could do that. But we are going through this whole process of trying to reduce impervious surface area. And Mr. Johansson had applied for a roof overhang, a porch overhang with a porch last year. Like I said, there isn't a requirement for a patio itself. However, you do have to stay outside of our setbacks. And in this case, there is a section of that that is within the setback.
But isn't there something along the lines? I remember we did this with our property, that there was a specific amount of green space versus
lot coverage.
Building, cement.
Lot coverage right now in the zoning code doesn't relate to patios. It relates to structures, and it would relate to a patio if it had a roof overhang or a gazebo or other structures like that, but it doesn't apply to patios themselves. So, but in this case, staff will talk to Mr. Johansson about the fact that he does have a part of that cement in the setback area, and he's going to have to do something about that, remediate that.
Denise, could you explain how major construction, which I assume this had to get a permit from the county, you said we had a relationship with the county. Did a permit get issued for the construction here without them consulting us? Or?
Well, and Mr. Johansson is here, so he can address that. My understanding is Green County Building Regulations had only the permit for the bathroom, which is what we had agreed would happen. So it wasn't for the finish work or the kitchen, or any of the shower.
So they inspect it, they wouldn't approve it for a dwelling because they didn't have the right permit and so forth?
Well, that is a question for Mr. Johansson. I don't know where he's at in that process, whether they're going to make him tear out walls to look at the electric, behind it or what. I don't know what they're going to require of him.
And then another question I have in general, because, you know, this is a huge problem, this sort of, and I don't know exactly what happened here, but when contractors and landowners move forward to ask permission or forgiveness later, you know, how do we normally, like, how's that been dealt with in the past?
Usually we just make them come through this process now and get approval after the fact. Or, I mean, if you don't allow them to do it, I don't really know what that's going to mean.
Well, this is pretty egregious. I mean, this is very egregious for what has happened here. I would think with the pad, with the auxiliary dwelling unit, with the pad that's extended up to the back. I mean, there's a lot that went on here that with Greene County didn't approve it, and we didn't approve it. We got a problem.
Yeah. So, like I said, the patio that's overhanging off of the house in Exhibit B with the floor underneath that is okay. We don't require a permit for a patio. So if he wanted to extend that patio across to the dwelling unit, he could do that. But he has to stay outside of the setbacks. And in this case, he did not.
And Denise, where is he at inside the setbacks?
Okay, so that is on a corner lot. So
Yep.
He's in residential B. So he has to be 20 feet back.
So he'd have to knock out how many square feet of concrete?
Well, he'd have to knock out from pretty much close to where his house is towards the front, but not the driveway.
Do any other members of the Planning Commission have any questions or concerns, or would you like to call Mr. Johansson to answer some of the questions?
I think I just have one other thing. So we're looking at ask forgiveness, not permission here, and this was a big undertaking all the way around. Correct? I can, in assuming that, I don't want to assume, but that's certainly the appearance. Yes.
Yes. Now, what you're dealing with is the accessory dwelling unit. Staff will deal with the patio area.
And then, of course, we always have the stormwater issue that's obviously got to be addressed here.
And that's when Johnny Burns went out to inspect that and saw all that impervious surface is when he said, as a condition of this accessory dwelling unit, he definitely wants to see some sort of stormwater plan for what he's going to do about that.
When you say staff will deal with the patio, what do you mean?
Well, I'm going to have to talk to Mr. Johansson about taking out a section of that.
Okay. I mean, we could make that a condition of the accessory dwelling as well.
Sure.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
So even if we approved it because maybe the permitting process wasn't as it should have been, Greene County could require him to do other stuff too, right? Like
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Ours is we're only looking at it from a zoning perspective, and in every other aspect of this, he meets the zoning code requirements. He just didn't ask first. And that's why we're where we're at. It meets the size requirements, the way the inside is set up. It meets that for the accessory dwelling. It isn't. It's set to the side. It meets the side and rear yard setbacks. It does meet the lot coverage. I know it doesn't seem like it does, Dino, because of all of that cement, but again, that might be something we as Planning Commission need to look at when it comes to patios for lot coverage anyway.
Yeah, so we can hear from the landowner and the neighbors for sure. Thank you.
Hey, can I say something real fast, Denise?
Sure, Johnny.
Hey, as far as
This is Johnny
Johnny
Burns.
Burns.
Okay.
as far as the building for the Greene County building inspection, in order to make that an accessory dwelling like they're doing, they have to change the arc fault circuits to arc fault receptacles and put in smoke detectors. Other than that, all the inspections passed.
Thanks, Johnny.
All the wiring had already been inspected, but because it was a garage, they didn't have to have arc fault because they changed it into a different use. They have to have arc fault detectors.
Any other questions from Planning Commission members right now? Would you like to hear from Mr. Johansson? Is he there?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you sort of talk a little bit about how we got to this situation? Obviously, members of the Planning Commission are concerned about the process. So how do we end up here?
Sure, Frank. Well, you know, originally with regard to the garage to start out, we did have plans made, and they're professional plans done by professional contractors. It was inspected by Greene County every step of the way. So we obviously did the sanitary line that the zoning commission knew about, and the sink and the toilet. So that all got done, and in the process, so again, it's probably, well, obviously I've got the cart in front of the horse, but in the process of building that, it became such a nice space. Originally, it was going to be my garage, put my motorcycles, and that's what it is right now. My motorcycles are in there, and I have a couch in it and a television set. It's a very nice space. So it was built properly according to code, and Greene County inspected every step of the way. So there's nothing that would need to be torn down or changed. Again, like the gentleman said, we need to change 2 arc faults and basically put in the newest smoke detector, which there's one in there now, but not the newest one. So it was an organic process. It came out so nice that I said, you know what, I'd like to turn this into a dwelling that I could utilize and have my parents come and stay. And especially now with the COVID and so forth, they can't go anywhere. They're in their 80s, and it would be a space for them to be able to come and be in Yellow Springs and spend time with me. I moved here a year ago. I just, wanted to be a part of the community. I just wanted to improve this property. I put a lot of money into this, and I want it to be very nice. And that's been the step, every step of the way. Everything's been done as first class as we can do it. The inside of the house is now all done, and we're very proud of it. We're proud of the property. We're proud of this accessory unit. So it was an organic process, and knowing what I know now, obviously, I would have just went through the zoning process in the very first place and just built it that way. But again, in the beginning, I wasn't sure I was going to do that. But then as I saw the space unfold, and I need the need for my parents to come and be able to stay, we just started working in that direction. So I hadn't done that yet, but I was, I thought, well, I'll try to plan to do that. So again, in the appraisals and so forth, that again, the cart got in front of the horse, and that's that's like ultimately it's my fault no matter who does it, contractor or whatever. So I can, point fingers around, but I didn't have the best advice to start out with. Although, I've always tried to do everything well. I had no idea that the patio, like I just extended the patio and the driveway and put that all together because I wanted to kind of get out of the mud basically. And to me, it was like landscaping area, just rather than stone, I had it in concrete. And there is a little pad on the back that Denise mentioned that goes back farther. And I didn't realize you had to be 20 feet away. I'm not sure my buildings are even 20 feet away from the property line, but that was going to be a pad for just like a barbecue pad or something along those lines. So I don't know. That's kind of how I got to where I'm at. And again, I'd like to iterate that, I just tried to make the space nice and improve the community and improve the neighborhood. I've enjoyed living here, and I like the neighbors, and it's a good neighborhood, and I think people get along well. And again, if I could have my parents come and visit and be a part of this as well, we have a lot of elderly people in this neighborhood, and that fits, that fits my thought process. So again, that I'm willing to answer any questions, and I just, trying to make a nice space. And again, I apologize for wherever I got things in the wrong order, but we went, I don't know.
Thank you. Do any members of the Planning Commission have any questions for Mr. Johansson?
I don't have a question, but I'm nearby and I've been driving past your house, and I think it's definitely.
I'm sorry. Who's speaking?
This is Steve Green, and it definitely looks nicer.
Okay, we'll have an opportunity for a public hearing for comments.
Steve's on Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is our new member.
Yeah.
Okay, right. My error.
Okay.
New face.
Okay.
So.
Anyway, Steve, you were saying?
Oh, I've been driving past as he's been building, and it's it looks a lot nicer now than it did, just from what I can see. I can see you put a lot of work into it. I don't want you to be discouraged about it.
I do agree with that. He has done a lot.
The drawbacks of having to scroll back and forth to get everybody's face on the screen. I wasn't sure who was talking.
And I don't know if I thought I put a picture in there too of what it looked like before the house and then what it looked like after. I don't know if I did that or not.
And the place was basically, it wasn't fixed up. It was basically completely reconstructed. The only thing that's left here is the slab and the roof truss. All the wall trusses were all rebuilt, all the windows, all the plumbing, all the electric, every single piece of this home is all brand new except for the floor slab and the roof joist. I mean, the roof sheeting, all new roofing, all new siding, all new gutters, all new everything, all new plumbing all the way to the street. This is probably $300,000 plus project at this point. So it isn't just fixing up an old house a little bit. To me, it was a big deal, and it was something I liked investing in the community, and I feel good about it. I have a lot of people stop and say how wonderful it is, and I mean, that was the goal. I didn't do it to make money. I didn't do it to flip it. I didn't do it to rent it. I did it to be a part of the community. So, I mean, I guess, like you said, I don't want to be discouraged, but I just, I guess.
Sure. And hey, David, so do you have any plans with this, are you ever thinking about renting or using your accessory dwelling as a bed and breakfast or anything like that? Or is this just
not at this time.
Store your motorcycles and place for your...
Well, you'll be able to take stuff. Yeah, you'll be able to use it for a dwelling, obviously.
Okay.
I have a question, Denise. Do we have off-street parking requirements for accessory dwellings?
Yes, and he does meet that.
Thank you.
That's part of the drive, and the concrete stuff provides good off-street parking as well.
Speaking of that, could you ask about the two campers or trailers, whatever we want to call? I see you got a camper, and then there's a bigger.
Yeah.
What are those? And are those going to be there all the time?
No. Well, they were here longer than I wanted them to be because the construction took longer than I wanted it to. But mainly we stored materials in there because there wasn't much space to store materials. So I kept things in there. The bigger trailer is a camper, but it's been full of my stuff, and I've just recently moved everything out and got it off the street and out of the neighbor's way. And I'm going to take that back to, I have a home in Ashland County and a place to put that. So that's going there probably this week. So that one will be gone. The little trailer I just use for, transporting motorcycles and things like that. It's just a little utility trailer. So yeah, no, those will be gone. I mean, the trailer could be there on occasion if I went camping and came back to here, but ultimately I have a space to store it and I don't need it to store things from the home anymore.
Any other questions from any members of the Planning Commission for Mr. Johansson? Huh?
I have one, but I am not a member of the Planning Commission. This is Brianne Parcels, the village solicitor.
Okay.
Mr. Johansson, when did you say you had purchased the property?
I have to guess. I think maybe March or April of 2019.
Did you have a realtor represent you or an attorney with that transaction?
No, I had, I think I just had an attorney, yeah.
Okay. Did you have any guidance from your attorney as to the zoning of that property when you purchased it?
No, ma'am.
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right. Members of the Planning Commission are okay. Any more questions? I'm going to open the public hearing on this application. So if there are any people who would like to speak about the application for the accessory dwelling unit at 602 Keystone, you can unmute yourself, and I'd ask you to please state your name, full name clearly before you begin to speak, and try to limit your comments to 2 minutes or so. Give everybody a few seconds to see if anybody wants to talk. Okay, I'm not hearing anybody chiming in, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission. Is there any further discussion?
I think I just want one clarification. We said this is not going to be a rental unit or an Airbnb?
Not at this time. I don't have any intention of it.
Does not at this time mean it will happen in the future?
I don't want to say never. I don't know, but no, that's not my intention.
With Denise, that would be another hearing, right? A conditional use for an Airbnb?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Denise explained that to me before, and that's what I told her. I said, this time I really don't, I don't have any intention of doing it. So if for some reason that changed, then I would have to come back and revisit with you all, of course.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to approve this accessory dwelling with 2 conditions. One, that the owners submit a stormwater plan that meets with the requirements of the village and that's approved by the service director and other staff. And the second requirement is that the concrete is removed to restore it to where it's not in the setback, and that the some kind of grass or landscaping is installed, and that could also be part of the stormwater management plan, but that also takes place, so the concrete isn't in violation of our code. Thank you. That's my motion.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion of the motion? Judy, would you call the roll then?
Yes. Williams,
Yes.
Green.
What did you say? Green?
I did.
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Salata,
No.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. That's done with our first public hearing. Now we're going to move on to the conditional use application submitted by Michael Ains and Heather Wright for a conditional use application for a home occupation at 409 South Stafford Street. Denise, would you give us a summary of the staff report on that, please?
Certainly. I just want to confirm that they are here. Are they present?
Yes, we are.
Hello.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay. Heather Wright and Michael Ains are interested in using their property at 409 South Stafford for something a little unique in that they want to have a garden for vegetable and fruit production that is what they call like a nano farming venture. And our land use code specifically says farms would need to be like for commercial enterprises and food production, such as animals and different types of vegetables, is typically for 3 acres. But in talking with our solicitor, she felt that this was something that could be under our home occupation requirements, because it's just simply their gardening. They are going to have maybe 1 or 2 hoop houses that we would probably want to, even though these are temporary structures, would want them to do an accessory structure permit. But it's pretty interesting, and staff thinks it's a good use for home occupations. It's a little bit different, I know, but we did have some requests that if Planning Commission approves it, that they stick to pre-ordered pickups that are scheduled, so there's not a lot of traffic, and they wouldn't have any sales on site in terms of like having a stand there for people to just come and go at their leisure. We wouldn't want to have them have any farm animals, and no lighting in their hoop house, which Michael already said they weren't going to do that. They're just going to probably have some for temperature control. But the reason that the solicitor who's here online also said these are not permanent structures, they're temporary. Everybody in the community gardens, and you can till that over at the end of the season. And the only thing that they would possibly be having longer term would be the hoop house, which is, right. I think they intend to use it like a greenhouse and maybe grow some fruit year round.
Yeah. And I would just add on, when Denise and I discussed this.
Could you, is this the solicitor? Okay.
In terms of verging on the side of it being a home occupancy sort of situation versus a farm, again, the word farm has some very specific definitions under the code that the applicants are not going to be engaging in. As Denise said, this is more like a larger scale gardening operation than a traditional farm, even though it is going to be a farm business and farms in the name of their business. It's not a farm as contemplated under the code.
So this is Steve Green. So just where does this, where is the border where this needs to have approval? If they were growing vegetables and not selling them, that's okay. But if they're setting this up as a business with the potential of selling the vegetables, then now it becomes a business and a home occupation.
Yes, because they're engaging in enterprise.
Okay.
Even though it sort of seems like, and I was just thinking about this as I was reading through the application, that the conditional, that the use that they're making of it is actually just sort of mainly the business side of it for selling the fruits and vegetables, not so much the growing of the fruits and vegetables. I mean,
Exactly.
So I don't even know if we can count the garden space as part of the square footage. Yeah, the whole thing falls into kind of an interesting area.
It does, and that's what Brianne said. You really can't count that as part of
right.
That 250 square feet or less. I mean, they could obviously take a room in their house to do their paperwork in,
right,
or in their accessory structure outdoors. But I don't even know if they're going to have a use for that. But their intention is to try to grow a lot in a small space, and they want to then market it to local restaurants and at food markets and in food deserts. They mentioned South Springfield and maybe also here locally.
Yeah, and I think they're just personally, I think they're to be commended for not only the nature of the project, but for sort of going through this process as well, which I think demonstrates good community spirit and conscientiousness on their parts as well. Do any members of the Planning Commission have any questions about this application?
One quick question. Are there going to be any, would they have any employees working for them at the property?
No.
Okay.
They do not. But they would, with the code, be allowed to have one employee plus family members. But for right now, it's just the two of them. And they are online. So if you want to ask them any questions too.
Okay, should we turn to Michael and Heather? Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, let me see if I can find you here. There you are. Okay. Hi. Maybe just speak to that question initially as far as employees. It's just going to be the two of you?
Yes, I don't anticipate that we would need employees for some time. It's going to take some time to develop, to learn while doing. I've been learning, of course, but it's going to take some time. So I can't imagine that we'll be of the scale of production that we would need help, and certainly not for the first couple of years, I would not think.
Right. And it didn't sound like, again, based on the information in the packet, that there would be concerns about increased traffic to and from the property.
No, I mean, I think we'll be lucky to get a restaurant customer or two. I think we'll be lucky to get a few individual customers. And as you mentioned, we do have a plan to give away some of the food in South Springfield. This is a part of the business plan, actually, developing business plan. But I don't think that we'll grow enough that we would need an employee. I'm sorry. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Any members of the Planning Commission, any other questions or concerns for Michael and Heather?
I have a question. How are the hoop houses secured to the ground?
Excellent. So they can be somewhat lightly secured, but that's not a good idea because we do have some strong winds here, although this will be situated in a fairly protected place given wintertime wind direction. Typically what is done is there are concrete posts driven in, and so they are meant to stay for about 3 or 4 years, which is as long as the poly film usually lasts anyway. So my intention would be to be able to move it up and down as long as I stay within the boundaries of the alley. My intention would be to move it 6 feet one way or another, or even to a completely other part of the yard in a few years. So it is not permanent, but it is
Semi-permanent.
Semi-permanent, I guess you would say. If they're usually 3 or 4 year structures before they're moved or changed.
Michael, why would you want to move it? I'm curious.
Oh, you have to move it because otherwise pathogens can build up in the soil. If you get pathogens, which this is meant to avoid, but you do get buildup in the soil. So moving is at least a little bit is helpful.
So the plants are growing in the soil underneath the hoop house?
Yes, right. So I will highly amend the soil anyway. The entire area will be lifted up several inches with really new good soil to improve drainage, etc., and to make the place level. So what was the, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, but just about moving it. Like.
About moving,
well, yeah. So, there'll be like a level plane that we can move it on. The soil should be amended and good. And so I can move it to new areas just to have ground that hasn't been used.
And about growing right.
Oh, and I'll grow right in the ground, but there is a possibility to build, for example, what I'd like to do is build shelving and do soilless strawberries. So soilless growing is growing in coconut coir, which is coconut husk. I've already been doing some experimenting on growing in coconut husk. And so I might do a strawberry farm indoors in one portion of the hoop house. Okay. So that would not be in the ground.
Okay. And then is this enough impermeable area? Is there any issues with runoff or drainage or anything? Or I'm assuming all the water will get soaked into the soil.
Are you asking me?
Well, there's more maybe a question for Denise based on like the concerns about, how much impermeable area we're creating.
Yeah, he has a lot of land with his, a lot for what his structures are taking on.
Okay.
He should be fine. He actually, in the photo that you're seeing now, he actually has the lot that fronts the corner of South Stafford and what is that street there?
Davis,
yeah. But he's concentrating it all up in the northern two lots and just one at the South Stafford Street side, which is across from the parking area for the church.
Okay.
Any other questions for Michael and Heather? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on this. So if anybody out there in Zoom land would like to comment on this application for the home occupation at 409 South Stafford, please unmute yourself and chime in. I'll give everybody a few seconds to respond if you like. Okay. Not hearing any comments, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission. Are there any additional concerns anybody has about this application?
I make a motion that we approve the application on the conditions recommended by staff.
Okay. And I'll just go ahead and read those in case, which is only one employee plus family members, only scheduled pre-ordered pickups, no sales on site, no farm animals, no hoop house lighting, and applying for a zoning compliance permit for temporary structures.
Okay. I do have a question. I'm sorry.
Who's speaking? Is that?
This is Michael Ains.
Okay.
Denise and I hadn't discussed farm animals until I got the application, but if we wanted to say have a few chickens for our own personal use, is that now not okay because of this home occupation, which is stipulating that there's no farm animals? Thank you.
Well, I would say then at least we would not want roosters.
Yeah, no roosters.
Okay.
No roosters.
And we would not.
We don't
also.
either.
So,
Well,
okay.
That is a condition.
That can be a condition. Okay.
That's a fine condition.
I amend my motion
Okay.
No farm animals except chickens allowed, no roosters.
Thank you.
Will that work for you?
Thumbs up.
Okay.
Okay, I will second that motion. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes. Williams,
Yes.
Pallotta,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
you.
Michael and Heather.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, we're going to go on to the third conditional use application. Max Chrome has submitted a conditional use application for professional offices at 604 Xenia Avenue. Denise, would you like to talk about this one a little bit,
And
please?
is Max online?
Hi, yeah, I'm here. Hi, everybody.
Okay. All right. So Max is looking to purchase 604 Xenia Avenue, but he received permission from the owners to come before Planning Commission for a conditional use hearing to see if he could do what he wants to do, which is to have his architectural firm or a branch of it inside the building at 604 Xenia Avenue. There's, he's not changing anything to the exterior of this building. And I mean, he's not making any additions to the building. He's not expanding it, footprint. There is a, as you know, a requirement in the zoning code with every use. There is parking minimums tied to that use. And I have my personal feelings about that they are, some of them are just, it's way too much. But that being said, there has been concern now raised by others as well. He does show in his drawing a parking area. I made the suggestion, if he does on off-street parking, that he can make that impervious surface area, and possibly Planning Commission can take a look at the requests that have been made by others, neighbors, saying there's plenty of on-street parking on Whiteman Street that he could utilize. And staff has no concerns with this other than possibly a reduction in that parking. And also, if he intends to do any outdoor lighting, we would want to see a lighting plan. And
Okay,
Max actually would like to make a little presentation of what he's intending rather than me trying to explain his drawings.
Sure. Thank you. I put together a sort of PowerPoint presentation. Is it possible that I can share my screen? I think the host has to make it me eligible. Oh, looks like that's already happened.
Your host now.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, well, okay, so can folks see a picture of the church where it says, okay, great. All right, well, I wanted to start with just a little bit of want to tell you a little bit about my background. I'm from Yellow Springs originally. My family came to Yellow Springs in 1970 in a yellow school bus. That's my dad, Nick, and Nancy there, and my 3 siblings. I'm the little guy on the right. My wife is also from Yellow Springs. That's my wife, Abigail. There's the baby, and that's Sheila, her mom, who still lives right at that same house, 1345 Meadow. We became real close friends with the Adolph family, Virginia Hamilton and Arnold Adolph. That's me and my little brother, and Jamie Adolph and my sister and his sister, Lee Adolph. here we are again, getting close to junior high school. That's Jamie there on the left, and our friends, Greg Ayers, Susan Asaf, and Donald Hutchman, all sort of long-term Yellow Springers. And speaking of junior high, I thought people might get a kick out of seeing some images from my junior high school yearbook. Actually, this is my wife's junior high school yearbook. And I'm sure most of you will recognize Ms. Canine there in the second from left. Also in that same yearbook, Mr. Rainey and Mr. Gudgel, they were both really big parts of my growing up. Mr. Rainey, he taught us role-playing games, which eventually led us into D&D, and our whole group at that time, like the whole school, was really crazy into D&D. John Gudgel, he was a substitute teacher for us in elementary school. Then when we got to middle school, he became a full-time staff there. And then when we went on to high school, he actually moved to the high school at the same time. All of that time, he was a great mentor. He was our track coach, and which I'll get into a little bit. These are the knuckleheads in junior high, same group. This is the cast of Cheaper by the Dozen from that yearbook. And these two guys highlighted, that's my wife, Abby, and myself. In the picture, we played husband and wife in that. I always thought that was cute. I became a track star at Yellow Springs. We were really a great team. We ended up winning the state championship my senior year. And that's my good buddy, Joel Robinson, who stuck with track for a long time after high school. He ended up running track in college and also coaching track at the University of Cincinnati. I went on to a track career at University of Pennsylvania. This is the old house on 68 where we used to live. We lived right across from what I still call Yellow Springs Instrument Company. And that's my girlfriend at the time and my friend Felicia. I'm here to admit the little crime we stole. My brother and I stole these signs when we graduated, had all our friends sign them, which we still have. Jump to many years later, my wife and I got married here in California. These are all the Yellow Springers who came all the way out to California to celebrate with us. You see my good buddy Jamie Adolph is there, and we're still great friends to this day. This is my family. I have a son and a daughter, and I wanted to give you all this background on my personal background because I do a lot of meetings like this, and I know it's important for people to know what the connection to the town is, and I just want to demonstrate how important Yellow Springs is to me, and that bringing my architecture firm is really kind of a move to come home, and I'm hopeful that it will be another asset to the town. So just to talk a little bit about my work, that's the front door. I really believe in kind of what you see is what you get kind of architecture. I don't like false materials. I would just rather see a naked structure. You can see the build out of my office. I'm going to do a sort of similar level of finish inside the church. You can see there's a lot of art up. I like to collaborate with the local art community to have monthly art shows. We just open up our walls to artists. In the church, my hope is to use the wall art to honor the history of the church. Past ministers and other historic examples of the church. I really want to be able to honor the building. I got my start in architecture doing coffee shops. Did a couple hundred Pete's coffees. That's kind of what got me started. It's a blue bottle coffee. And that work led to other retail work for companies like Pottery Barn, Williams Sonoma. This image is the original Williams Sonoma. And Mr. Williams, we got this open for his 99th birthday. This was the original building that he started his company in, and we restored it based on his memory to as close as we could. It was a really great project. Done lots of other retail, but didn't want to just do retail. We also do residential work. This was the first house that I ever did about 10 years ago, or 15 maybe, and continued doing really high-end residential work and commercial as well. So these are just some examples of our work, some recent commercial project here in California. So thank you for bearing with me through that. I just wanted to give you a little background about who I am and the kind of work that I do, and hoping to bring my particular brand of architecture to Yellow Springs. So to get to the project, we're located here. We're in the RC zoning district. On the right, I wanted to show where we're located, but then the red arrows indicate other locations of similar uses kind of up and down in that zone on Xenia Avenue. So I just wanted to kind of demonstrate what we're asking for here is not too out of line with what's going on in town. In kind of researching this building, I want to find other churches that were built at the same time, just to see if I could kind of determine what was original and what was not original on the existing building. One thing that's clearly that the belfry's been closed up. So I looked at a lot of different versions of belfries, and all of these churches were built in Ohio within a 5 or 10 year period from the church on Xenia Avenue. And I'm just looking for inspiration on how to restore it back to sort of its original look. You can see in this slide that the roof is made out of wood trusses. This is not the church at 604, but this is a similarly constructed church. If you get up in the ceiling space, you see these gorgeous oak, hand-hewn, hand-joined trusses from the middle, 1850s or so. And they're just beautiful. One of the things I hope to do is to remove the plaster ceiling and expose beautiful old trusses. Okay, and so now here we are to the church. What I'm planning to do is just to paint the trim gray. I want to replace the stained glass windows with clear windows, but use the stained glass on the interior of the project. I want to make it look a little bit less like a church, but I don't want to hide what it was. And one thing you'll find in all of my proposed designs is I like old architecture, and when I'm doing an addition or change to it, I really want to highlight what was great about it and to try to bring it back to something that will let it carry on as a building for another 170 years. So this is our site plan that you see in your packet. Of course, there's the church in blue there. We were talking about Denise was talking about the parking. When I originally looked at this project, we just designed a parking lot essentially. And the current owner saw the plan and raised a concern, Krista, and she was concerned that this might be objectionable to some of the neighbors. And so I spent some time talking to her, try to get an understanding of what the neighborhood parking needs are. And I came away from that conversation really agreeing that what we're proposing here is probably more than what's necessary. If you consider that this was once a church with pretty heavy use. Our use now is much lighter than that. This is what we're showing for parking. It's quite a big area. It's enough for 9 spaces, 8 of which would be tandem. And what I would propose is just to do it out of gravel, except for the accessible space, which it has to be concrete in order to function well as an accessible space. So if I had my druthers, I would just do the concrete accessible space and let the rest go. But what I told Krista and any other concerned neighbors is I'm happy to do as much or as little parking as the Planning Commission would like. So this is it's not a big deal for me one way or the other than the fact I want to be a good neighbor and I want to take the concerns of the neighbors into consideration. So I'd leave it. If there's any other comments, I know there's been some letters, but I'd leave that part in your hands to discuss and to come back with how you'd like us to handle it. So getting onto the floor plan, this is what the existing church looks like. I just want to describe quickly what I want to do inside the church. First thing is I want to cut a big hole in the floor. This is where the stairs would go. There's a basement in this church. It does get some light from the exterior stairs and from the stairwell down, but I'd like it to get a lot more light. So my hope is to open up the floor, restore these bathrooms. There's two, not restore, but turn them into commercial bathrooms. One of the things we have to do as a commercial use is make them ADA accessible. So we'd be remodeling those bathrooms. The area in green would be a vertical circulation that would get us up to where the mezzanine is. In the area in yellow, there would be a conference area. There's a catwalk existing now that I'd take out in order to, because what's left over, the rectangle that's left over is what I'd use for the studio space. And so also we'd fill in the hole where the spiral stair is. That sort of leaves you with a plan that looks like this. Like I said, you have a couple accessible bathrooms, stair up to the mezzanine, conference room, and then a studio space where you could look over the railing down into the basement below, which was where there would be sort of accessory spaces, a library, things of that nature. So this is the existing floor plan of the mezzanine. As I said, we're going to take out the catwalk there. We're also going to infill a little bit of the floor area. So to just create one rectangular space up there. And the plan for upstairs is to create a lounge area and a manager's office. Moving on to the basement. So this is the existing basement plan. Again, the idea is to cut a big hole in the ceiling so that a lot of natural light could get in. To modify the kitchen area, you take out the spiral stair, and then you're left with something like this as a floor plan. So that's it. That's my presentation for this one. And I also I wanted to mention that I wanted to thank the planning commissioners for just taking the time out of their evening to do this. I know it takes a lot of personal time and effort, so I appreciate you sitting to hear this. And so I'll turn it back over to the commission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. One question that I immediately have, especially looking at the floor plan, what do you anticipate for staff in the space?
Well,
I mean, how many people?
Yeah, I have room for 8 desks. You could see there and so that would be a total of 8. I would have a desk on the floor, like this big desk would probably be mine back here. And I would also use the manager's area. So I would say a total of 8. But I don't have 8 people to bring to Yellow Springs right now. So that would be maybe over a period of a couple years after I'm able to establish the practice, if it grows to 8. But what I've done here in California, although I have more desks than I have people, I've sublet the desks to engineers, artists, graphic designers, sort of like professionals that can get a benefit out of sharing the printers and the copiers and the space and that kind of thing.
And the reason I ask is relative to the parking situation. I mean, how many people are going to be working in a building on a typical day, in addition to potential number of clients that might be coming there on any given day as well?
Yeah.
Is part of the reason I was interested in that.
Sure. I would say, assume that there'll be eventually 8 if things are successful, and that you might have as many as, I would say, a maximum of 2 guests at a time, maybe a client and a vendor or someone else having a meeting. Generally, we wouldn't have more than 1 client at a time in the office. It's really mainly for the workers, but you would get visitors from time to time.
Okay. Are there other members of the Planning Commission that have any questions or concerns that perhaps Mr. Chrome can speak to?
I just have a question for,
Is this Denise?
Denise, we could, Planning Commission could consider as if his business does grow, at that point, we could reassess those parking spaces.
I was going to ask, considering the configuration of the lot and the fact that I think the access to the parking would, the additional parking would probably come from the alley. Is that right?
That's right. Let's go back.
And that could be added at a later date if necessary. Is that an option?
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Absolutely. So if on this slide here, let's. There we go. So this area, one thing that I think would be, even if you weren't requiring parking, you might require that we not build on this area, or if we do build on it, that we propose where we might put parking if the commission ever required it. So if you're not going to require it now, you might do a condition that says, well, don't build anything else there now, or that you won't be able to. Well, obviously, we wouldn't be able to do that without your permission anyway. But I guess what I'm saying is I'd be willing to kind of hold that space open, and under the understanding that if we needed to provide more parking in the future, the space is there for it.
Right. And you said, I believe you mentioned that you would want to have a concrete or a firm parking space for ADA.
Yes, that's one thing I feel pretty strongly about, is to have to at least meet the accessible parking requirements. And we have an accessible entry here in the back, so we would have sort of the accessible path of travel into the space would be through the back. And because the front, obviously it's not accessible. You have to go up the steps. And so I think that would be a minimum.
Okay. Any other members of the Planning Commission have any questions or concerns right now?
I have a couple, Laura Curlis.
Okay.
Exhibit 3, Denise, the parking has a different configuration. Could we talk about that for a minute?
Yes, the configuration that he originally turned in, I contacted him to let him know that there were concerns that the neighbors might not like to see all that parking. So he then came back with that second drawing, having parking actually at directly off the alley.
This was the first proposal we did, and like I mentioned, I just it
was in their packet.
Yeah, I feel that this
you got both alterations, though, didn't you? You should have had both in your packet.
I think we did.
Yes.
Yeah, this was my first submission. after my conversations with Denise and Krista, I felt that it would not be very neighborly to have those spaces parked up against our neighbor to the south. And so that's when I put the other plan together as an alternative, because I thought that that was a better solution for the neighborhood.
Have we had any comments from actual neighbors on this?
Yeah, we have some people here that when we open the public hearing are going to want to speak.
Okay, great. Thanks. And I have a question, Denise, and I understand Mr. Chrome about the integrity of the historic building, but in the event they decided they wanted to remove the cupola, the top of it, would they have to get our permission to do so? It's not a historic district or a nationally registered building or anything.
We have a National Register of Historic Places, and this, I don't know if this is actually even in that area, but even saying that, it doesn't prevent people from doing what they want with these buildings unless we, as a planning commission or council, actually establish a true historic district here. I mean, the historic district area was actually one that was done back in the 80s by the state of Ohio. So it doesn't protect buildings. We would have to establish such a thing. There are a few buildings, this is not one of them, that have either easements on them or to protect like the exterior facade, or in the case of Antioch College has a couple that are considered National Historic buildings.
Well, actually, my question comes from a different direction. I want to protect the sky, not the buildings so much. I mean, like, I would love to have that cupola out of the sky view shed. However, that's his choice, of course, and he wouldn't have to come to us for permission. And along the same line about the sky, I don't think I see lighting proposed, and I know that's an issue here. But my comment would be, I would hope whatever lighting would be the lowest impact and 90-degree cutoff, both to protect the sky, but also to prevent glare from going into the neighbors' windows and that sort of thing.
Yes. That's why we asked if there is going to be any type of outdoor lighting, that we see a plan for that.
Any other questions from or concerns from Planning Commission? Okay, I'm going to go ahead.
Hold it. So,
sorry.
Mr.
Yep.
Cromer, did I hear right that the plan was that you wanted to buy this building, not just renovate it, but also to purchase it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm attempting to purchase it now. We would have already closed it, except if the financing wasn't taking so long right now. So we are in the process. We put an offer in over a month ago that was accepted, and we've all been kind of working diligently to make the sale happen and have every expectation that it will. This is, this is for myself. I would be the owner. My wife and I would be the owners of the building.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. If anybody would like to comment about this application for 604 Xenia Avenue, please try not to step on each other's virtual toes here. But yeah, I'm sorry. Just go ahead and state your names for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Rick Klopp, and I am the neighbor, along with my wife Barbara, directly south of the property under discussion. I think just to sum it up, we have absolutely no questions or concerns about the northern plat that contains the building. However, as our neighbors in the neighborhood and we ourselves noticed, the parking is a tremendous concern. if I can refer to the petition, it says the site must be designed in a manner that is harmonious with the character of the surrounding area. And I would contend that the first example on sheet A1, is absolutely out of harmony with the surrounding area. Sheet, A11, that's a tad better. However, I think if a village engineer goes across the street where there is a semi-residential, semi-commercial entity, halfway house,
Harmony House,
the so-called Harmony House, they will see people coming and going all day long. That is psychologists, social workers, counselors, delivery guys, right, and on, who park on the street. So I think I can understand Max's desire to have some kind of some parking on his property, but I think given the amount of space on Whiteman and on Xenia Avenue, there's ample parking for any particular moment of use. If the parking is shoved back to the alley, now this makes the alley a kind of a thoroughfare, which it already kind of is because of the offices down at the Humanist Center, but they managed to convince people that it's a throughway that's one way, okay? And even though off that alley, besides the Humanist Center building, we have 3 garages and that's it. So I think by wanting to accumulate a number of automobiles in the western side of the lot, he's going to create a little mini thoroughfare there that I think is detrimental to the neighborhood. But other than that, it looks like a great project, and we want to welcome Max and his wife and family, and let's see what kind of trouble we can get into.
But your view is that there's probably plenty of on-street parking?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, people that have garages here sometimes park their cars on the street because either it's going to snow or whatever. I mean, they want in and out. We park our car occasionally when we have people doing contracting work at the house and need to put their equipment in the garage. So it's not a burden in any sense of the word.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure that was clear. So,
can I have a question to them?
Sure.
For you guys, with the on-street parking, I agree with you with that. With the ADA that Max was talking about, what are your feelings if he had a parking spot in the back where he showed for an ADA for handicap parking? What is your feelings on that?
My feeling is that, I mean, why isn't there like a standard garage back there or something akin to that would provide parking for maybe 2 or 3 vehicles? I mean, he's certainly entitled, the owner is certainly entitled to build a garage where there isn't one.
But we have no issue with the ADA.
Yeah,
That seems to be a very reasonable thing to want to put in place.
Thank you.
And just, I got another question for you guys. So if, let's say at some point, if parking does become an issue, this area on the western edge of the lot, is that, if the streets did start to fill up, I mean, do you think that that's a good place if you have to add more parking? Do you like this arrangement better? It sounds like you like this arrangement better than the one where that whole southern lot becomes a parking lot.
That's correct. And
okay.
One of the reasons for that is because our back door that leads to our backyard is what, about 15 feet away from that boundary line. I don't know about you, but I don't want to walk out of my back door and, be looking at a bunch of cars parked in a parking lot.
We have 4 windows and a glass door that overlook that south parcel.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, If I want to look at cars when I look out of the window, we'll move.
All right.
That's not so easy because the house that we're in, and I realize this isn't germane, but I'll just throw it in so that you know that, you know, we're trying to be reasonable. We're in this house because it's been in my family since it was built in 1910.
Wow.
So it's not as easy as deciding, well, we're tired of living next to a parking lot. Let's sell and move somewhere else. There's something else at play here, and it's not a wide lot. It's 55 feet, you know, so we're kind of at the bounds when we walk into our backyard. That's why we're concerned about the parking in general, but we're particularly concerned about it as it's on the boundary by the house.
Okay. I'm going to, I hate to rush you, but I'm going to move on to see if there are any other people that want to comment about the proposal. Thank you guys very much for participating. Is there anybody else, again, who would like to comment on this
Connie
application?
Crockett.
Connie Crockett?
Yeah, 611. I'm across the street from UMax, and I just really wanted to hear your presentation. It sounds wonderful, and I want to welcome you back to the neighborhood. I remember your family very well. And my late husband was actually, we had his memorial service in that church, so I'm fond and I'm glad it's not coming down. In terms of Whiteman, I think it's pretty well parked up a lot of the time, honestly. And Xenia Avenue, yes, it's busy, and we've had a few cars smashed into on Xenia Avenue. So I think that a newly welcome business with a concrete pad to accommodate the ADA and a few other permeable surfaces, parking spaces is well within reason. So that's all I wanted to say, and I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Anybody else? I see Krista raising her hand. Yes.
Yeah, hi, thank you.
Could you just state your name, please, for the record?
Krista McGaw, and
Thank you.
we're in the process. We've got a contract with Max to buy the place. I want to just comment that other than street fair days, there's very little parking on Xenia Avenue on either side of the street in front of our house. That is 2 days a year, and I doubt that it's a big day for architects to see their clients, actually. So I have had a sort of a one-person lobby effort with various council people for years now to try to get parking spots actually outlined, painted on Xenia Avenue, because I think that that would encourage people to park, which would definitely minimize anything like the situation that Connie's been describing, where people think that act like this is a 4-lane highway and are much more likely to hit a vehicle. I think it would be a great improvement to be able to actually define those parking spaces, you know, in order to encourage people to park there more. And then I also think it would be more orderly, you know, in terms of the comings and going with Harmony House across the street to actually have those spaces defined. So I would strongly recommend that. The ADA pad, I think, is a great idea. I think it is going to take a while for Max to expand his business to have any need for much more. I also think even in this improved drawing, the double spaces, that just seems so unnecessary. It looks to me like even if he had a single space right off the alley, then that would be the handicap accessible plus 4 spaces. So, you know, my preference would definitely be that other than the ADA spot, it be waived at least at this time. I want to mention that Rick and Barb are fantastic neighbors and have done a lot to improve that property. They've totally re-landscaped it, and they've actually built a greenhouse between their garage and their house, which is very attractive. All the landscaping is very attractive. I was pretty horrified when I saw the first parking configuration and I'm pretty shocked because I think that there's a couple aspects here. The historical nature of this building kind of being on this property and also the neighborhood, the historical nature of the neighborhood. We got the Octagon House across the street, you know, although there's no protection connected with it, it's a historic district. And so I really strongly favor Max's druthers.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kristen. Anybody else like to speak about this?
I have a question for Denise.
Yep.
Denise, if this were to remain residential, and let's just for argument's sake, the next owner, how much parking would they be allowed to do on site as a residential use?
2.
They'd be allowed to have 2 anyway, somewhere on the property.
Every residential structure is supposed to have 2 spaces. That's the max, or the minimum rather.
And right now, this one has none.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else from the public who would like to comment on this? Give a couple more seconds for mail to Kristen. Did you have it?
I'm sorry. It's 2 lots. There's also a good possibility that bike ability is a factor, which I think was in the staff recommendations to be thinking about that. And I think that basically we've parked our cars on the street the whole time we've been here. So without us in the neighborhood, there's definitely going to be a little bit more spots on Whiteman. Additionally, there is a light at the alley in Whiteman that is very bright that would totally light up that accessible identified parking spot. No problem there. It's a very, very bright light. So I just wanted to comment on that as well. Thanks.
Okay, any other public comments? Okay, not hearing anybody, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to Planning Commission for any other comments or concerns or questions that they might have, particularly for Mr. Chrome or Denise.
I have a question for the neighbors. If we allowed Mr. Chrome to have all the parking he's suggesting in this drawing, except for spaces 6 and 5, where we required some shrubbery, visual blockage so that there was some green between the parking and your property, how would you feel about that?
I don't know. That's a walk-on that I'm not really in a position to respond to right now.
Okay.
That's fair.
I have a couple items. I want to cite Mary Ann McQueen's letter about parking on the street, on-street parking. If we look at Anthrotech on the corner of Davis and Xenia, they park both. Their business people park on Davis, on East Davis, and there's also cars parked on Xenia Avenue. It's not a problem. I foresee the same thing over here on Whiteman and Xenia, that there's not going to be any difference. I think there's more employees right now over at Anthrotech that Max is going to be bringing in. And I live down on Davis, so I see what goes on there. There's not a lot of activity, so I can't imagine that much more activity going to be happening over at Whiteman. And as Mary Ann said, there's a side of us that we need to get past this side of parking, the amount of parking that is required in our code. I think the only thing that I'm looking at that was of any importance is what Max said would be the ADA spot. And if there's already proper lighting there, as Chris already had mentioned, I think you're in a good situation.
I think we have to remember that, you know, in the future, especially with the new comprehensive land use plan, there's going to be more pressure for on-street parking. And I guess I'm sensitive to landowners' needs. You know, if they want parking on their property, a lot of times people with architects, they're carrying big drawing suitcases to carry things in and out. I mean, if that's what they want, I guess there's some level which we should respect what the landowner wants, or in this case, the person renting it.
But if I can say one thing, and that is that, I don't know that Max is married to the idea that he wants a parking lot. I think Max really was just doing what is required in the code.
Meet the code, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I wouldn't have proposed anything other than the accessible space. If you had no requirements at all, that's probably all I would have proposed.
So could we put a conditional use saying ADA spot? And then if he wanted to look down the road that he needs to come back to us if there should ever need to be parking, that a parking lot needs to be where he can't build on. Do we need to say something along those lines? Or do we need to address it?
I think we could include language like that as a condition, couldn't we?
I mean, I just want to keep it simple. This seems like we're all on the same page here.
Well, that's an interesting question because, I mean, typically a parking lot isn't anything Planning Commission doesn't deal with on its own. You can. I mean, you definitely could.
Because we can waive the parking spaces requirement.
Yeah.
We're allowed to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like from both the staff report and what people were talking about is that we'd like to have the ADA parking. That there needs to be a plan for outdoor lighting, and that perhaps future consideration given to additional parking spaces if necessary somehow. Perhaps reserving. Not building anything else on the western end of the lot in case that has to be used for possible future parking.
That seems very reasonable. That if he needs parking, he'll have a place to put it.
Yeah.
Frank?
Yes. Who's speaking?
It's Judy. Can I?
Oh, okay.
Does it make sense to suggest as another condition that, as with a lighting plan, that he needs to return to Planning Commission if he would like a parking plan more extensive than the single ADA spot?
That sounds good to me. How do other Planning Commission members feel about that? Thumbs up?
Sure.
Okay. I think that sounds good.
No, I just don't want to throw any monkey wrenches in this, but that if he chose to just sell off that vacant lot, that someone could put a house there.
Yeah.
That is in of itself a conforming buildable lot. So that would not prevent someone from doing that in the future. I don't think that's Max's plan, but I'm just putting that out there. And that would be something that would not come before Planning Commission.
Could I clarify this light?
But the current owners could do that too, presumably.
Yeah.
They could sell it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I'd like to clarify that staff is saying in their recommendation, only if outdoor lighting is planned, that this should come to the village for review. I mean, they don't have, I'm all in favor of them not doing any outdoor lighting, but if they do, it has to come to you.
And all we would do from staff level is just make sure that what you're saying, that it's directed down lighting, that it's, it doesn't have a big impact. We don't want, and our code already says you can't have light that spills over into neighboring properties, especially in residential areas.
But there's already a light there too that's throwing off a tremendous amount of light.
There is. That's what.
Yeah. Well, the village, we have to deal with our outdoor light.
The street lamp there.
Yeah.
Oh, the street lamp.
At the end of the alley.
So I make a motion, we approve this on the condition that they build the one handicapped, and that additional parking could be permitted in the future if the owner came back to Planning Commission.
And a requirement for outdoor lighting approval.
If there's outdoor lighting, that the plan be submitted to staff for approval. Thank you.
Okay, I would second that. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes, Pallotta,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all, and thank the members of the public for helping us out with that as well. Very
Thank
nice
you
to
all.
hear from you and very helpful. Okay. All right, that gets us to our fourth conditional use application. This is by Iron Table Holdings LLC. Has submitted a conditional use application for 241 Xenia Avenue to have a dwelling unit on the upper floor of a building with non-residential use at the street level. So Denise, would you like to talk about this application?
Yes. Let me get here. Hang on just a second. Okay. So yeah, this is this property is it's a single lot which has 3 attached structures on it that house the flower shop, and there used to be a couple businesses, hair salon and a retail store, and then there's Unfinished Creations in the third building. The plan is to bump out flush with the floral shop, the walls to make about a 450-foot increase in the square footage on the ground floor for a full service hair salon, which would take up the space within two of those attached structures. It would be opened up. And then the other one, well, it was one attached structure. The other building which has Unfinished Creations, the upstairs dwelling unit would have an attached roof deck that would extend over onto the top of the Unfinished Creations building. The requirement for parking, again, this is a good example of just how out of touch we are in our parking, and something that Planning Commission should really look at. The Planning Commission is in the zoning code. It basically says for every station, every beauty salon station, you're supposed to have 2 parking spaces, and that would mean that you'd have to have 42 parking spaces, because there's going to be 8 manicure places, 8 pedicure, and 5 hair salons. So it's unrealistic. That being said, the way the code reads, it does allow for other types of off-street parking lots, like municipally owned ones that are within 300 feet of a building. And we have 2 of those lots, one at the back of Keith's Alley and one just down at the end of Keith's Alley across Corey, where the fire station is and the subway, Bentino's. So those are within 600 feet, I think it is the requirement. So that's pretty much it. Have been some concerns about the upstairs outdoor patio deck. There is a couple windows, and there is a residential apartments upstairs in the building next to it. And I believe Mrs. Hoover is here, so she can speak to her concerns with that. I did want to say that the front part that's bumped out does not extend. It isn't a balcony that extends over into the sidewalk. It is it's flush with the sidewalk, and the actual deck part is actually set back a few feet, similar to the way it is designed at Unfinished Creations. And another concern that came up, which is something, you know, staff will definitely work with the contractor on, is just trying to minimize with this approval, any downtown construction activity. Try to limit it so people can still get to the stores and have a limited impact on the existing stores around it. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Members of the Planning Commission, do you have any?
If I might, I have a click through for this one too. Could
we try to make it really, really quick, because we still have a pretty sizable agenda for us yet tonight. So
I will be quick. If I could share my screen. I think it's important to show you some of the studies that I've done around the shade and shadow, which are relevant to the concerns on the upper deck. So I'll just in the interest of making this quick, let's see. Okay, so this just showing where we are, the zoning wise, just a mood board. This is the existing brick building there. One thing that is really important to me when we were building out this is to keep the integrity of the brick building. You'll be able to see the brick right through that storefront. The idea of this is that it's a glass jewel box kind of put up against that old white brick building. I really want people to be able to see right through to that existing brick and kind of get it that, oh, this is just some glass that's been stuck onto the front. This is where the Unfinished Creations is, that we don't anticipate any changes to, you know, anything below the soffit line. The idea is to kind of make that long, what I'm showing in blue, kind of read as a single piece of architecture. So that's kind of what drove this concept architecturally. What I'm showing here circled is where the windows are that are, I believe, of concern to the neighbor. And I want to talk more about that and what I've done some studies. I won't belabor the parking again. We do have 6 spaces we're providing on site, and we're hoping that that the commission will see fit to approve it with the other public parking that's available. This is the Unfinished Creations. That's the existing brick building, the flower shop. We're going to demolish the back part, the sort of bad buildings back there, not original, pretty junky stuff. And then we're going to build the front. We're going to build some on the back, and we're going to build a circulation stair that lands us with a floor plan that looks like this. That's the detail of the inside. I won't get into that too much. Upstairs, this is just the rectangle that you see. The original brick building is all the upstairs there is. We're proposing to add that much under roof. So what's shown in orange is under roof, and what's green would be the patio area. So that leaves us, this is where the bed and kitchen would be, big living room area in the deck. This is the area of concern with the windows. Here you can see it in this perspective. So what we're proposing is to build a privacy screen that's approximately 6 feet tall. And so you can see that's the height of the windows. The floor level is a little higher in the adjacent building, so they kind of start a little higher than we do. But this gives you a sense of sort of what the relationship between the windows are. So what Denise, when this concern came up, Denise asked me if I could run a sun study. And so it really, in order to properly do a sun study, you have to do it at different times of the year. So I've done one for January, one for April, one for July, and one for August. I'm just going to play this one. You can see the moon shadows kind of moving across the deck now. It'll be really bright when that's the sunrise. And so what you see here is that in the month of January, no sun shines on this wall at all. So our software allows us to put in the latitude and longitude and the north, and that allows the program to compute when the sun will hit the building. So now we're in April, same thing. Moon shadows moving across the building, this sunrise, and then you see the shadow of the building moving across. I'm going to pause here because what I want to point out is you can see the shadow of the existing building. So the brick building, you see the shape of it up there? If you can see, so so this is at 8 in the morning. The time code below corresponds exactly to the hour. So 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning. And what this shows you is that the privacy screen does not cast a shadow on the windows. It is the building. So the privacy screen falls within the shadow of the brick building that's already there. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that in the month of April, there is a shadow. The sun does hit this building between 8 and 10, but that the privacy screen does not impede on it. Same exercise in July. This is the worst case scenario when the sun is sort of oriented the most towards this, or this is the day that this wall gets the most sun. And again, you could see that the shadow of the screen wall misses the windows. So I think that was important to show you for those concerns. I did another one in October, but again, during this month, the shadow, the light on the face of the window is very brief. And again, it does not cast a shadow on the, from the privacy screen. So.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Give it back.
Denise, did you have anything else from the staff report?
No.
No. Good. Members of the Planning Commission, do you have any comments or questions right now?
I got just a question about I don't want to get too far into this, but just it looks a lot like a restaurant. And is that just because that was like the way you sort of filled up the space with the kind of, the things that you didn't want it to look empty?
Yeah. It's funny. I was showing my wife this.
Were you referring to the deck?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's exactly it. I just put a bunch of furniture up there to kind of make it look full. It does look like a restaurant, but it is not intended to be a restaurant. My wife asked me, like, so isn't that weird to have a residence? And then what's all this space? And I understand that it looks that way. That's
okay.
A poor placement rather than intention.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks really cool.
Thank you.
Other questions or concerns that members of the Planning Commission have right now? Okay, well then I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing on the application for the 241 Xenia Avenue. And so again, go ahead and please chime in and state your name clearly for the record, and say what you need to say. All right, thank you.
This is Ellen Hoover, and my husband and I own the building that Max was talking about next door. And I really appreciate, Max, the sun study. That clarifies a good portion of my questions. I have a question for Max about the panels, privacy panels, and a question for somebody on planning about a question about conditional use. And so the question about the panels would be, how high would they be? And you've said 6 feet, but where does that land in terms of the windows on Little Art Building?
Well, I'm extrapolating from the exterior of the building. So I don't know where your floor height is, but I'm assuming it's 3 feet below the windowsill. That was sort of what I was assuming. It could be 30 inches, but I'm assuming it's somewhere between 30 inches and 3 feet. And by counting up the bricks and that sort of thing is how I determine the relative relationship. So I think that your floor level is maybe 18 inches higher than the level of the patio or of the deck or whatever you want to call it. And so the screen is 6 feet up. So I believe that you would, I believe your head, if you were looking out that window, you'd still, the screen might be up here or something. I think you could see over top of it, but I can't promise that because I haven't measured where your floor is in your space. But I'd be happy to, understand that and design it in conjunction with you, like the details, so that we're optimizing the height so that you're getting the right privacy to see over, but still having some view. What I showed you was about the concern of light, but it doesn't necessarily address the views from inside your space.
And that's a concern. I understand that those privacy panels are your privacy. We as landlords can handle her privacy by installing blinds and window treatments. But the question is, when they're open, can she see the sky? And I think that would be, and I would very much appreciate it if you just work with us on that point.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, those are the issues we had and concerns we had. And by the way, I really am pleased you're doing a frontage that is visibly open, because it really does take away objections about the historical changes.
Yeah, and again, my dad, after he was a professor at Antioch for many years, but in the 70s when he got downsized when they kind of got small, and he was a builder in town. That's sort of how I got interested in construction, and one of his primary things was to save buildings and to honor old buildings and honor construction and honor the people who build them. So one of the things that's important to me in every project I do that involves an old building is to make that building special within the project. Never, try to avoid covering up the original brick as much as possible. And that's why I want the new building just to kiss slightly up against that brick. So you see all the old details from the inside. It's a real cool effect too, to kind of turning it inside out.
Yeah, Ellen, what was the other question that you had for?
The other question I had for Planning Commission is just to help me understand a little bit about why it was conditional use, because it's the same use. There's no change of use there. It's additional square footage, but you still have retail and nail salon and so forth. Not nail, but hair salon. And
the conditional use, because it's a new owner, even though the use is the same, staff has the choice if to bring it to Planning Commission, and with the fact that it was going to have that increase. Overall, it's not really expanding that much with the demolition that's happening in the back, but because there are going to be some definite changes to it, we felt that it needed to go through that process.
Just curious.
We wanted it to be a public process.
At this point, my concerns are relieved here. So, you know, so from my point of view, Max will work with us. If you give him our contact number, that'd be great.
I will definitely do that. Thank you, Ellen, and I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen. Anybody else want to join into the public comment on this application?
This is the village solicitor. Just as a matter of record, with the areas that are going to be demoed, you mentioned that those had been added on to previously, so it was kind of a hodgepodge. Max, do you know when that most recent renovation took place?
No, I don't. The Greene County may have records of that. Just from the construction, my guess is it 70s, 60s, 70s, maybe. But it is, regardless of when it was built, it's pretty junky stuff. It's kind of not, at least in my opinion, not kind of worth considering as an important building or anything like that.
Okay. I was just curious if you had any sort of professional estimate as to how old it was.
That would just be my estimate, just based on eyeballing the construction. But we could probably do better if you needed to know.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I'll wait a few seconds. Okay, not hearing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you, Ellen, for your help with this. Bring it back to Planning Commission for any additional concerns or questions members of Planning Commission have at this point.
So I have a question. Can you tell us anything about Iron Table Holdings, or is that not something you can discuss?
It's not something I can discuss. It's my client, and it's a privately held LLC. That's really as much as I feel comfortable saying.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve this application of the conditional use with the only condition that if there is outdoor lighting, that a lighting plan be submitted to staff for approval.
I second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded that we approve with, I'm sorry, could you restate the motion for us, Judy, please?
Approve the conditional use with the condition that if there is outdoor lighting, a lighting plan be submitted for approval by staff.
Okay, and it was seconded?
Thank you. Green.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Lotta.
Yep.
Curlis. Yes.
Dun.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. That gets us to our fifth public hearing for tonight. Max, you're not done yet, right? Again, this is a request for rezoning. Iron Table Holdings LLC is requesting an amendment to the Village of Yellow Springs official zoning district map to rezone the property at 405 Xenia Avenue from B1 Central Business District to RC High Density Residential in order to allow for it to be multi-family dwelling. Denise, would you talk about this application?
Yes. In talking with Max, the property owners wanted to turn this into a multifamily building. I told him that it was in the B1 district where multifamily buildings are not an allowed use, and that would the company that owns this building consider having, as it is laid out now, an office downstairs and apartments upstairs, but they really weren't interested in doing that. So it was really at staff's suggestion. When I looked at the rezoning, I felt that it was not a lot, it wasn't going to be a big impact because it literally was this building that they wanted to make multifamily There was a residential house behind it. And then there was the public library, which is a use that's allowed in both, in only 2 districts, and that is B1 and RC. So I was pleased to see Karen Wintrow's support of this, being that, you know, she and I had a conversation. I let her know that if the house behind this one would want to ever turn into a business, it could become a professional office, as is allowed in RC, just like the 604 Xenia Avenue. So I felt it wasn't going to be an impact. I did have email conversations that were forwarded to me through Husway from the executive director of the Greene County Public Library, Carl Colin, and when he understood it, he didn't seem to have an issue with it. I had suggested that Mr. Chrome reach out to the owner of the property behind to explain what the project was going to be. He did. And I also sent them a letter telling them to please feel free to call me if you had any concerns or questions. And I did not receive any follow-up from them. So I take that as that they are okay with this.
If I could jump in there, just to give a real brief summary of what that conversation was. I just called to let them know, you know, what the plan was. It was a brief conversation of maybe, you know, 5 or 10 minutes. And he said he didn't have any opposition on the face of it, but he wanted to learn more. And so then I think the follow-up from Denise is what he was expecting. And I haven't heard back any negative comments. So I'm also, at least at this point, I don't believe there's any objection.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any questions or concerns from members of the Planning Commission right now?
I have some information to share.
Okay.
I might have been one of the first people to look at it when it came on the market, and I was looking at it for professional office space. But if you haven't been in that building, and Max, you could clarify this, as I recall, it's already cut up into, I think, 4 units. And at one time, at least 2 of them were residential. Like there's at least 2 kitchens in there already, right? Yeah. I mean, it's already cut up that way.
It is 3. It was, the kind of funny thing is when it was, there was another architect named Max something or other. He did a remodel to it in the 60s, I think. And that remodel was to convert it into 2 residences upstairs and what could be a residence down, although I don't know if it ever was used as a residence or not. Yeah, but the zoning code has changed since then. So it really, I think it's consistent with the building itself. It's just not consistent with the zoning code right now.
And Denise, the zoning map you showed us, is that the current one or on the future comprehensive?
That's the current one. Yeah.
But it's also the same on the one that's being proposed as well. Because I checked that because someone brought up the concern it would be a spot zone, but it actually wouldn't be, which is helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The reason that staff wanted to have the entire 400 block facing Xenia Avenue and the property behind was to not create any spot zoning. However, if the property owner behind wanted to keep it B1, I mean, it would still have a contingency with the Mills Park Hotel across the street. And that would not be considered a spot zone, but I think it just is better to just do all 3. And then there is not any concern about a spot zone at all.
Any other questions from Planning Commission? Okay. All right, I will go ahead and open a public hearing. So if there are any members of the public who would like to comment on this application, this proposal for 403 Xenia Avenue. Feel free to chime in and please state your name clearly. Give people a few seconds to let us know. All very lonely here on Zoom.
I'll fill days with just one comment. One thing that's come up a couple of times, I want people to know that this building is protected. There's an easement on this with the Tecumseh Land Trust. And it prohibits any changes to the exterior, other than maintenance and things like that. And, we wouldn't dream of changing the exterior of this building. So our only interest is to protect and preserve the structure. We do want to get rid of that little garage, though, that's pretty junky. That's not protected.
Any other members of the public want to chime in? Okay, not hearing anything, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring this back to Planning Commission then. For any last minute concerns or questions?
I have a question for Judy Kentner. Do we need to make the findings that are recommended?
No, that's only required of the BZA. And my understanding that rezoning needs to go on to council. Brianne, can you?
Yeah, well, it's the staff recommendation is that we're making a recommendation.
We're making
we're recommending it to council.
Recommendation to council for the rezoning, changing the zoning map. So that would be all subject to final council approval.
I make a motion that we recommend to council that they make this zoning change and that recommendation is forwarded with the findings of staff.
Oh, second.
Okay. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Williams.
Yes.
Pallotta.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chrome, and also all the members of the public who participated. It's very helpful for you to provide the information and the questions and concerns that you did. So thank you very much for being here. And now we're going to get on to even more exciting business. So I'd recommend that you don't leave because now we're moving on to amendments to the planning code, and you don't really want to miss this.
Sounds pretty thrilling. Can I ask, what will this 403 will it go in front of council at a public hearing as well, or is that something that happens at a private session, or how's that?
Yes, what will happen is I've asked at staff meeting today that it be presented on September 8th, which is a Tuesday, for council because of Labor Day. And that'll be a first reading. And then the second reading and public hearing will be on the 21st of September. So it has to go through two. And I believe if anything changes, I'll let you know, but I believe that's how it's going to be set right now for their agenda. They've got a lot going on, but we're going to try to get this one in.
I've got a question. Then for Max. If it is not read as an emergency, there's a 30-day wait after the second reading if it is approved. So you're looking at whatever that second meeting in September is, 30 days out from that. So about October 17th or so. Is that problematic?
No.
Okay.
All right.
For Max, he can still move forward with, getting his plans together for Greene County. Greene County will accept the plans, but before they will actually permit the building, give the building permit, the zoning permit has to be in hand. So he can at least go ahead and start the process with Greene County. Okay, so we're moving on to text amendments.
I'm getting, just to warn you, for some reason, I gotta check my wiring here. I'm getting a low battery warning. I might disappear. We'll try to finish up before my battery fails here. I'm not sure what's going on wiring wise.
Well, hopefully
I only have,
these won't take too long.
I have it plugged in, but it doesn't seem to be working. So.
And Raven will be putting those up on the screen, starting first with the parkland. Okay, so yeah, so Exhibit A on that. So as you know, we didn't really get into a deep discussion about 122607 for parkland dedication, but we had all agreed that, Raven, go to Exhibit B, would you mind? But we'd all agreed that, you know, there are no 50 acres in the village right now. So the suggestion that staff is just making is striking the 50 acres or more. Also, we thought about putting in open space, but we'd already thought, well, that doesn't really make any sense in a subdivision. Really, it needs to be something that's dedicated for public use, whether it's a park or a playground or some other recreational use, rather than just open space that people in the public aren't going to realize is something that they can use. So we also thought that we would put in there land dedicated for stormwater management shall not count within the minimum of 5% unless it serves a dual purpose. And that was already approved. But I talked with Aaron Sorrell, and you saw the memo from the first exhibit where he suggested that if there is a dedicated for public use area near a proposed subdivision, that if it wasn't possible, if it was a subdivision where there was a park nearby, that the developer could pay a fee in lieu of dedication. And he said oftentimes they do it on a different formula, but he suggested what the village's previous very old park plan suggests is that if you have 3 acres of active playgrounds per 1,000 residents. So he thought that determining that fee, he would base it on the number of units. And so he came up with a formula for that. So if you had, and he gave an example, if you want to go back to Exhibit A, and we would have this in our packet for contractors. So he gave the ratio that if there is an amount of land, it would be the facilities ratio, if it was 3 acres times, there were going to be 100 units times 2.5 people. Is that how he did that? Equals over 1,000. It would require 0.75 of an acre to be dedicated for a playground or a park. And he felt that if we did a subdivision, then to do in lieu of, if it was a 100 unit subdivision and the land is worth $30,000 an acre, then that 0.75 acre would be a fee that they would have to pay, $22,500, that could go into our park and rec fund. Does that make sense to anybody? He just thought rather than using an acreage, he thought using number of dwelling units.
That part makes sense. Is this something that's typical, that he's basically sort of buying the use of the park for for his, like, part of his development?
Well, what
Or
he's saying it is pretty normal to have a fee in lieu of,
Okay.
but he said that you should only do that if there is a park nearby, already an existing park nearby. Then you could give the developer the option of doing a fee in lieu of.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you're doing a subdivision where there isn't a park nearby, then then you would require them to do a park.
And do we define what nearby is?
We don't define that, but I would say we really don't have very many places that have parks nearby with what land we have.
Okay.
It would have to be something near Gaunt Park.
Okay.
And that would be outside the village right now.
Okay.
I mean, 100-unit subdivision sounds like a pretty big subdivision. You might want a convenient public park area, playground area.
Yeah.
Okay. So this sounds like this is unlikely to have much application.
Well,
unless the village became bigger.
Well, right now as it is, it would not, because it's based on 50 acres. But if we instead do it basing it on the number of lots,
Yeah.
then it would.
Okay.
Then we would have a way to actually require it. Whereas we don't really have that right now.
Okay.
Do we have any benchmarks, like I'm trying to do a gut check on how many units or how big of a development would I feel like moms and dads need to be able to just roll a short way to take their kids to playground?
Well, I think that the way this will be written is it's any subdivision. I mean, not a pocket neighborhood development or not a PUD, but any major subdivision of any site, of any acreage, however many lots, you can apply this.
And what's the definition of major?
Well, it would be anything more than 5 lots. It's minor subdivision is 5 lots or less.
So like Birch 3, would they have had to have some kind of park or open space?
Yes. If we would have had this in place, they would have had to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm all for that. That would have been nice.
Yeah, that would have been nice in that size subdivision to have a central area where, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's missing.
Raven, can you go back to the Exhibit A1? Because the other thing too about this is it doesn't, let me make sure before I say.
I'm on Exhibit A right now. Which one are you talking about? The actual text?
Yes. Exhibit A1. I think there was something in there that, which we already put it in, that if land is dedicated for stormwater management, it can't count within the minimum 5% unless it serves a dual purposes as a recreational or aesthetic feature. So if they do have to do a storm plan, then they would have to create it as a pond that would be for public use or some other, they would have to turn that into a recreational feature. Otherwise, they would have to find something else. You couldn't count that.
Right.
I think it's an improvement, definitely over what we had, which was pretty useless to us.
For some reason, I'm feeling like 25 units or more should require some kind of public park area. I'm just trying to envision, and of course,
just a warning. I do seem to be going to lose my.
I don't know. Maybe you could bring us some other options that fit this village. You know, Denise, it's like, look at what we have to develop and what makes sense. Of course, I lived in London at one point, and every block seemingly had a green space with some public area. I mean, that's a lot.
Because it had it plugged in the whole time. But
Frank, can you hotspot?
just a second, let me try something else here.
Yeah, Laura, if you wanted to, I mean, because this kind of leaves it open for anything that's a major subdivision. And AJ, you're familiar with how you define a major subdivision. Am I correct in saying it's anything over 5 lots could be considered major?
Yes, anything over 5 lots.
So we could keep it that way, or if you want to instead, Laura, say, that it kicks in if there's over 20 lots or something like that. Laura? Hello?
Laura, you're muted.
So anything over 5 right now, we would require it unless we determined they were near enough to a public park.
Correct.
Okay, well then leave it. That sounds small enough for me. I think it's important for Planning Commission to weigh in on whether a major subdivision should have public park space.
Okay, and it doesn't take into consideration your PNDs or PUDs just because those might have a lot on one lot, so you can't really count those the same way. So this is for anything other than PNDs and PUDs. And I might, if you in making this decision, I might add that.
Lori is going to try to get me hooked up on her computer.
Okay.
The only other thing I'd like to see from Denise is the Planning Commission would have the leeway to allow it to be open space. I mean, it depends, you might have a 5-unit development right next to Gaunt Park, but yet there might be some reason to preserve the tree line, some trees or a green space area, that.
And if you want to leave it like that, that's fine too. It's all up to you guys.
How you park or, park and or open space.
So we can do that. Raven, we can just take out those strike throughs if everybody's in agreement with that on the open space. And let it be for open space, parks, playgrounds, or other recreational uses.
Stand by.
Okay, so do we need a motion on this then? With that change, I would make a motion, we approve this change in the.
I'm not clear what your change is here, right?
The changes are striking out of 50 acres or more.
No, I mean the changes that Laura's making.
Oh,
that's what I'm recommending.
Is keeping in open space.
Yeah, we're gonna keep an open space, but make the other changes.
Repeat those changes to me real quick, if you don't mind.
Well, it's just what's printed there, with the exception that open space would be unhashed through and the color of red taken away.
Can I be given leeway though to go back and take another look at this as far as the minimum of 5%, because that might end up needing to be taken out and it be based on those number of lots.
Yeah, I mean, do we have time are we in any hurry here? Could you bring it back next time?
I can bring it back next time, but it might not. I might have to bring it separate from the other subdivision regulations. I kind of want to do everything together. All it's going to do is it's going to push us to September 21st and the first meeting in October.
To do all the subdivision regulations.
Yes. Yeah.
Well.
Which is fine. I mean, we can do that.
It's probably okay because I'm not sure anybody's going to start a subdivision in November. They might, I suppose, but.
Yeah, the next meeting is going to be September 15th, and it actually might be the first meeting in October because of we have to notice things way ahead. So
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If you leave open space struck, how is open space different from other recreational use?
Because it may not be for recreation.
It could be for taking a walk.
I mean, it could be.
But I mean, I don't know. I just think your current wording, even without open space, leaves you a whole lot of latitude. If you go through the process of reversing it, that's fine. But the or other recreational use is pretty broad.
So in that conservation world, when you say recreation, you end up having to just debate about passive or active and whether you can pour concrete or not. And anyway, open space is a indicator more of natural habitat.
This is Brianne. I think if we're going to leave open space in there, we're going to have to define what is open space versus recreational uses that, might be a basketball court that's paved, or it might just be too fuzzy to say that it's open space without saying what open space is.
Is that defined in the definition section of the regs, Denise?
No.
No, it's not.
Open space?
Yeah.
I would have to go back and look. I don't know that it is. If it's in the planning code, I don't.
It usually means, and the IRS gets into that. It's generally natural habitat.
Let me take this and we'll come back to you, because I want to come back on that one, and somehow we'll just delay this part if need be.
I mean, from my perspective, you can make the definition as open space means undeveloped. No buildings, no other structures.
So do we need a motion to table the hearing?
Brianne, is that going to cause any issues with us passing the rest of the subdivision regulations, or?
Again,
it's all part of the same design standards.
Yeah, I think
it's feel everything.
If you have one thing that's a problem, that's got to be definitional in nature, you're going to have other issues to pin down as well.
Okay, so I would prefer then we table that and come back to it, and then that just pushes our subdivision regulations back a little bit, which, that it is what it is. So
are we on a timetable for any reason?
No.
Thank you.
So we've been on it for a year. We're trying to wrap it up here, but that's fine. We've got other things too that we're trying to wrap up, so we can push it.
So can we get a motion to table the amendments to the planning code?
I motion that we table it.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved. Can you hear me now again?
Hey,
yeah.
Back.
Sorry
So
about
that's okay. So we're, Frank, we just tabled the parkland dedication one. I'm coming back with some more information.
So,
Take this.
roll on that, Judy.
Yeah, Williams.
Yes.
Pilata.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that still leaves Appendix A.
I love it when we get a packet full of pictures. Looks good.
So Appendix A, as you know, the previous Appendix A is literally a diagram of a street that which I've provided in previous packets, of what was called an estate street design. which had, enough of a right of way for swales, and then pavement. Typically, those were built in the southern part of the village where there weren't sidewalks, but we're trying to become a much more walkable community. So in the subdivision regulations, as you'll recall, we instead just suggested that if someone has an idea for ways for low impact design elements for such as storm swales, that they have to keep in mind that they still have to do the sidewalks, and they can always present a concept to Planning Commission. And instead, we're going to have this Appendix A, which is a guideline for anyone, local contractors, developers that are doing any development on any acreage, to use these low impact development guidelines. Now, if it's a big subdivision, and it's going to have an acre or more of impervious surface, then that kicks in those stricter guidelines, which we've already reviewed and passed. And for everybody else, it would be this. And Raven, I want to scroll through, you help do this. Raven created that flow chart from what we had before. What you can do with roofs, lawns.
So how does the guideline work? If somebody,
show you.
Well, no, I mean, just like in terms of enforcing it, if somebody comes, they're not putting in an acre of permeable surface, and they want to use this. I mean, can you force somebody to do something, or we're just like,
Yeah, it will be a requirement of the zoning permit approval that they present a stormwater plan.
But this just provides them
and it's
a variety of options.
Scroll on down, Raven.
Okay.
So this is just the different types of things they could do on their property, but and these are designs that were done by MSP. Aaron Sorrell went ahead and did this for us, even though that was kind of outside the comp plan, but that was a nice thing he did. And at the end, it goes into, there'll be a sheet. There you go, on how to calculate that. So if you're building an 800 square foot accessory structure like a garage, the stormwater treatment volume would be 496 gallons. The stormwater treatment volume in cubic feet, 66.3. And then what? Let's go on. This is how you figure that. And when you come up with that calculation, then if you find out that, well, you're going to end up having 600 gallons of water that's going to be remediated from that structure, you might say, okay, I'm going to plant 4 trees, or I'm going to do 2 trees, and then I'm going to do an infiltration trench, or different types of designs or things that they can't do on the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we're going to expect people to do this and to work out how to deal with the the whole amount of water.
Yes, and all it is to try to mitigate as much as they can before it hits our storm system. I mean, they'll still, take it to the storm system eventually, but it might be like through the infiltration trench, it's going to slowly hit that.
So Stephen, you want to do 2 things with stormwater: is you want to slow it down, and you want to try to clean it too, if you can.
Right.
And try to keep us, it all ends up in the Glen, and the more that goes fast, the more harm. And then plus the pollutants. And right now we're not treating stormwater. Some cities will have to do that in Ohio, but it's just more environmentally friendly for us to do this. And also I've seen around the village, which used to happen a lot, literally one neighbor putting their downspout onto the next neighbor's property. I mean, there's still that happening here from the past. At least I hope it's not happening anymore. But so yeah, making everybody think about this issue, how they retain their stormwater.
Right. And
So what we need to do is, oh, I'm sorry.
it is. And I just saw there was a flyer in the Yellow Springs News this week that Environmental Commission is also trying to provide people with, if you want to create a wildlife habitat on your property, and that too will also serve to help mitigate stormwater. And also hopefully bring bees and other to your property.
Just
The
not
only
roosters.
thing I can't square in my mind, Denise, is how this works with density. You know, I mean, that's something for the people thinking at 30,000 feet, like Aaron, I guess, to figure out. But you can't drive to city type density and implement these kind of provisions.
Well, if you, in all subdivisions, all new subdivisions are going to have, it's actually kind of a double thing here. You've got all new subdivisions, major subdivisions are going to have to go under those stricter guidelines where they're going to have to build that detention basin or, some way to hold on to that water before it's to slow it down. But on top of that, then each individual lot that developer is going to develop, they're going to also have to have this as well. It's like a double layer.
So, Laura, this thing that you could possibly, if you like, let's say you did have city density, it gives you the option of having cisterns. It might be the most expensive way to deal with the water, but it would be the one that takes up the least amount of space.
Possible. I don't know what it costs to put those in, on an individual property, but we'll see. I think it's the right direction to do these environmental.
So
can I ask something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. So this standard, the stormwater calculation, for an example, like Mr. Johansson's thing, we would be applying this to him, correct?
Once it's passed, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
If he's building the structure, he has an existing structure right now.
But you've got a lot of impermeable with the cement all around and all that.
Right. And so that is a new text amendment we're going to have to bring forward because right now patios are.
Well, that's more than a patio. That's a pretty substantial drive. That's not just a patio.
So the action, Denise, that you're looking for us is exactly what?
Oh, this has to be approved because it's an appendix that's in the planning code.
Okay. Any other questions or comments of anybody at this point? I'll move that we approve this.
Second.
Would you call the roll, please?
So you're moving approval of the amendments and sending on to council for final approval?
Yes.
All right. Curlis.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Pilata.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that leaves the only one will be the parkland dedication that we didn't hash out and figure out. And I'll come back with something else. But we'll just hold up the subdivision regulations in its entirety because we are going to repeal the entire section of the code rather than each individual section because that would take council forever to go through.
All right. So that gets us to old business, new business, and agenda planning.
The only item I have for agenda planning is I think we should think about our process in terms of the public's ability to review thoroughly what's coming before us so they can make comments. I mean, and I had a conversation with Ellen Hoover and she did say she's brought this up a number of times over the years. And I don't know what the answer is. I personally would like to see the packet like completely out there on the internet a week before. I know Judy and everybody are going to kill me, but it's like if it was out there for a week before a meeting, then people really could at least have 5 days, 3, 5, 4, 7 days, to look at it and then make comments and call us and so forth.
Well, one of the things about that is that people have to have their application and their plans in 20 days ahead. And so like Krista McGaugh, for example, she called me up and said, hey, can I come in and look at those? My report wasn't finished because, that takes a lot of time and you're still trying to do other things. But she was able to come in at any point 20 days before the meeting and look at what plans were submitted. So, I mean, you can see the application, you can see the plans. You just may not see my report.
Right, but as far as a topic of discussion for agenda planning, maybe making that better known to the public that they could come in and see the plans, even though the report isn't done. Just perhaps communicating what's available to people. That might be something we could do a better job with.
I do want to mention also that when people contact us and they don't feel comfortable coming in the building due to the current situation with the pandemic, we are more than happy to email those documents. Sometimes there's some difficulty with emailing because they're sometimes very large drawings. I did send Ms. Hoover the full drawings of the 241 Xenia, but she was having a hard time seeing them when she printed them out because they were just so detailed and large.
Right.
So, but we do have that as an option that we will email it if someone can't come in.
Why don't the staff put together some additional information that can go out online so that people know when they are able to observe things and how late they can submit comments and letters, because it's not completely clear now. But I don't know that the timeline for submitting materials and putting out the packet should change because otherwise we're sitting on available material. We're just sitting on it, waiting in case someone wants to write a letter. And to me, it's inefficient, but we can do a better job of the communication, as Frank.
Yeah, and we do also in every public hearing notice, we state every public hearing notice, this is how you can contact the clerk at this email address. You can contact me at this email address or my phone number. I mean, we do, whether people read that or not, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. One thing I do want to put on for agenda planning for the next meeting is the comprehensive land use plan presentation of the final draft. Okay. I'm thinking that he should be ready to go. We did have an open house, so to speak, outdoors. That was announced in utility bills, on Facebook, on our webpage. It was in the paper, and an ad in the paper about it. And then he probably had between 30 and 40 local people that did come out that day over the course of the day. And there were a lot more people that came and looked at things, but he didn't write down the people that just happened to be riding by on their bike, or, he could tell when they were local people and when they weren't. And then he would engage people that were interested in asking questions about it. So he got some good feedback from that. But the village staff felt that, and Josue in particular suggested maybe we needed to put it also in the paper. So we put the draft as a 2-page spread in the Yellow Springs News to get additional feedback from that. Aaron did say that he probably had close to 200 hits in 7 days on the www.sustainableyellowsprings.com. So that was good. So he's going to be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
And it goes to Planning Commission, and then Planning Commission approves it. They make a recommendation to council.
Right. All right. Anything else for agenda planning?
Raven, didn't you say we may have a
You may have a minor subdivision, possibly. Otherwise,
that's it, I think.
I think that might be it.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to add food trucks on.
No,
No, okay.
not yet.
I didn't catch that, if we've gotten that ready or not.
Oh,
So,
no. I don't have it on my radar right now, so.
okay.
Okay.
All right. I think that gets us to the end of the agenda then. Is that okay with everybody? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Or something. Aye. All opposed? Right. Thank you very much for a very long and demanding evening.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have
Nice
a good
job,
night.
Frank.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.